A very good evening. Nice to have you join us on the news at 5 on Channels Television, reaching you from our global headquarters in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Dominic Iwiwa, and these are the stories and reports we're tracking at the moment. President Bola Tinubu has commended the Nigerian armed forces and other security agencies involved in the successful operation in Kogi State that led to the elimination of notorious bandits kingpin Ibrahim Batstuji. In a statement signed by the Special Advisor to the President, Information and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Nanuga, the President described the operation as a significant blow to criminal networks terrorizing communities in Kogi and neighboring states. He noted that Bastuji's reign of violence, kidnapping and attacks on civilians had caused untold hardship for residents, and his neutralization will restore confidence and give respite for residents. He says, quote, "I congratulate our gallant troops on this decisive milestone. Nigeria will not surrender any part of its territory to criminals. Those who choose the path of violence against the innocent citizens will find no hiding place. This success reflects the renewed determination of our security forces to secure every inch of our land." End of quote. The President also commended the troops for another successful operation that led to the rescue of the widow of the late former Chief of Defense Staff Information General Rabi Abubakar, retired, which demonstrates a high standard of professionalism and the needed determination to confront forces of evil. He reassured Nigerians that the government will continue to provide the armed forces with the resources, training and support needed to end banditry, kidnapping and all forms of violent crimes. The governor of Katsina State, Dikko Rada, has unveiled tough new security measures aimed at crippling the operations of bandits and kidnappers across the state. The directives, announced after an emergency security meeting with security agencies and traditional rulers, include a statewide ban on the sale, purchase, transportation and storage of petroleum products in jerry cans to cut off fuel supplies to criminal groups. The executive order also mandates the immediate closure of all point of sale businesses and commercial phone charging centers in Matazu and Masawa local government areas, while imposing a total ban on motorcycle use in the two councils. Governor Rada said intelligence reports indicated that some of the facilities were being exploited by criminal networks to coordinate and sustain their activities. Meanwhile, the governor paid a solidarity visit to Mrs. Amina Rabi Abubakar, wife of the late Major General Rabi Abubakar, following her rescue from captivity by troops of Operation Fasanyama. He commended the Nigerian Army for what he described as a swift and professional operation, praising the troops for their courage and commitment to protecting lives and restoring peace in Katsina State. The National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPSS, in Kuru has confirmed a security incident occurred near its campus early this morning. Management reports that security agencies responded swiftly, bringing the situation under full control. The institute assures the public that all staff, participants and facilities are safe and normal operations are continuing as scheduled. Authorities have launched a formal investigation into the event. NIPSS is currently urging the public to disregard unverified reports circulating on social media. The institute has promised to provide further official updates as investigations progress. For now, the campus remains secure.
Elements tried to get into the National Institute. They tried to breach the perimeter fencing and get into the premises of the National Institute. We do not know the scope of the incident at this time because the matter is still being investigated. There are policemen and other security agencies on the premises who are currently conducting an investigation. What I can tell you is that efforts have been made to bolster the security presence on the institute. What I can tell you is that even though the incident lasted for a little over an hour, nobody was abducted and things have returned to normal.
The National Assembly is calling for a comprehensive approach to combating insecurity in Nigeria. Speaking at the National Security Seminar in Abuja, organized by the Alumni Association of the National Defense College, former Senate President Ahmed Lawan emphasized the importance of collective action against terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, and other security threats. Senator Lawan, who represented the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, harps on the need for stronger border patrol measures as part of efforts to combat insecurity.
This is the 15th National Security Seminar organized by the Alumni Association of the National Defense College as part of measures to combat insecurity in the country. The seminar begins with speakers examining the issue of border security.
In recent years, we have used this forum to interrogate critical issues of national security. For instance, in 2014, we examined the theme, curbing oil theft and illegal crude oil refining in Nigeria.
This seminar will examine the policies and practices required to monitor, manage, and safeguard Nigeria's international boundaries to prevent unauthorized entry and exit, as well as combat transnational crime such as smuggling, terrorism, while facilitating safe and legal trade and travel.
The vulnerability of the nation's borders and the need to strengthen security across the country dominates discussion.
On the aspect of physical security, border security can help in countering terrorism and counter-insurgency. It can also help deter transnational criminals and reduce crimes such as smuggling, human trafficking, and the proliferation of small arms and light weapons.
It was observed by Okumu in 2016 that effective border management has become a critical component of state security in Africa due to the increasing complexity of cross-border criminal networks and security challenges.
Other speakers harp on the need to strengthen the nation's border security, just as the National Assembly stressed the need for a holistic approach.
The security of a nation begins with the protection of its sovereignty and territorial integrity. For Nigeria, effective border security is not simply a law enforcement responsibility. It is a strategic national security imperative.
It is now time more than at any other time in our history to have all hands on deck to deal with the menace of insecurity in Nigeria.
The seminar with the theme Strengthening Nigeria's Border Security Architecture for National Security is aimed at brainstorming on how to effectively combat the nation's security challenges.
The Federal High Court in Katsina State has sentenced a female arms courier, Hawa Mokhtar, to death by hanging after she was convicted of conspiracy to commit, aid, and abet terrorism in a case prosecuted by the Department of State Services. Mokhtar was arrested by the DSS in September 2023 at GBR Motor Park while allegedly attempting to transport 438 rounds of 7.62mm ammunition to a notorious bandit leader operating in Zamfara State. After reviewing the evidence and testimonies presented by both sides, the court found her guilty on all counts and imposed a death sentence in line with the Katsina State's Penal Code law. The conviction marks the second death sentence secured by the DSS this month in terrorism-related cases. It also follows the recent conviction of another female arms courier who was sentenced to 20 years imprisonment for unlawful possession of ammunition and attempting to provide support for terrorist activities. Staying with the judiciary, Justice Jude Onwugwezie of the Federal Capital Territory High Court sitting in Apo has dismissed an application filed by the council to a former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Sadiya Umar Farouk, seeking the setting aside of the bench warrant and warrant of arrest issued against the former minister, Mrs. Farouk, alongside two others, Bashir Al-Khali and Sani Mohammed, who are to face prosecution by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, for an alleged case of criminal conspiracy, abuse of office, and diversion of public funds to the tune of $1.3 million and 746.7 million naira. Delivering his ruling, the judge held that the defendant has willfully failed to appear in court without a valid reason, maintaining that the law empowers the court when it has been ascertained that the defendant is absent from the court without a valid reason to issue a bench warrant of arrest. Following the ruling, counsel to the EFCC, Rotimi Jacobs, asked the court to enforce an undertaking allegedly made by the counsel to the former minister, Mr. Ibrahim, to produce his clients before the court. Mr. Lawal, who appeared for Mr. Ibrahim, asked the court to allow the senior advocate to personally respond to the issue. Justice Onwuezie granted his request, stating that Mr. Ibrahim should be allowed to be in court to defend himself, and adjourned the case to July 2nd, 2026 for arraignment. Staying with judicial matters, Justice Mohammed Umar of the Federal High Court Abuja has revoked the bill granted to the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, Omoyele Sowore. Mr. Showore's bill was revoked by Justice Umar for failing to appear in court for his trial. At the day's proceeding, counsel for the prosecution, Kehinde Akinlolu, told the court that Mr. Sowore was absent from court despite being aware of the day's hearing. Mr. Akinlolu prayed the court for the revocation of Mr. Showore's bail for his failure to appear in court and his alleged continuous move to delay his trial. Justice Umar acknowledged that although Mr. Sowore had sent a letter seeking an adjournment by the court, he did not state any reason for such adjournment in the letter. He subsequently adjourned the case to 22nd June for hearing. Now, a chieftain of Accord Party, Mr. Gbenga Olawepo Hashim, has described the recent court judgment which orders the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to deregister some political parties, including the Accord Party, as judicial rascality, insisting that it violates the directives of the Court of Appeal on the matter. Mr. Olawepo also argues that the Accord Party meets all the constitutional requirements for party registration, as it has elected representatives at local government, state, and the federal legislative levels.
It's unfortunate because the appeal court had restrained the High Court. Yet the judge went ahead. That's judicial rascality, simply put. But I think the legal processes will take care of that. I'm convinced that that decision cannot stand by the grace of God. I can't see the logic, in the registering Accord. Accord is one of the best performing parties. They have produced senators as far back as 2007, many as a reps member. During the last election, it had produced 3 councillors in Jigawa. So, and currently you have a governor, there's a member of Accord, you have members of Senate, other reps. And so it's illogical. It's an issue of democracy. That our independent founding fathers committed to multi-party democracy. The 1999 Constitution guarantees it. So there is no legal subterfuge, that can obliterate this fundamental pillar of our democracy. Nigeria is a multi-party state. It will not be a one-party state. It will not be a two-party state.
And now let's bring you up to date with what we're following on the Warri Itakpe train derailment story. As we can tell you that all equipment involved in the train service incident of June 8 has been fully recovered. And that's according to the Nigerian Railway Corporation in a statement signed by the Managing Director, Kayode Okpefa. The NRC says as of today, all passengers who sustained injuries and were admitted to hospitals in Agbo and surrounding communities have been treated and discharged, while one NRC staff member who sustained serious injuries remains under specialist medical care. In continuation of its post-incident response efforts, the corporation says it has constituted a medical and victim support committee to coordinate engagement with injured passengers, relatives of deceased victims, and other affected families. Chairman of the committee, Dr. Osarunwese Igbonigu, disclosed that members of the committee have commenced visits to affected persons Meanwhile, with passenger rescue operations and equipment recovery successfully completed, the NRC civil engineering and new lines engineers have commenced rail track restoration works. You're watching the news at 5 on Channels Television. Right after this break, we'll bring you more stories making rounds at the moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. The federal government is targeting 30% steady electricity coverage across Nigerian healthcare facilities by 2027, dubbed the Nigeria Power for Health Initiative. This public-private partnership joins the Ministries of Health and Power to drive private investment into healthcare infrastructure. Speaking at the NPHI Investor Matchmaking Forum in Lagos, Power Minister Joseph Tege assured stakeholders that all frameworks for successful execution are firmly in place. State Minister for Health and Social Welfare, Dr. Isiaq Salako, added that the initiative offers prime opportunities for investors while directly improving healthcare outcomes nationwide. The forum convened key government officials, financiers, healthcare administrators, and international energy developers.
Thank you very much. Today, we are carrying forward that compact to bring in the private sector more robustly, to see how we can harvest private investments, blended financing, to ensure that our health sector is energized. And we set for ourselves a target that by the end of 2027, we want to get at least 30% of the health facilities in Nigeria running on 24/7 power supply. There's some aspect of it that we cannot deal with. And that's why we immediately brought in the Ministry of Power, the Rural Electrification Agency, we brought in the Concessionaire Agency of Government, and all agencies of government that are relevant.
It's a disaster when you're carrying out a surgery and light goes off. And for me, I think it's a very big issue. And that's why we're working collaboratively to ensure this happens. We are working very tirelessly, ensuring that this thing is fixed. And I can assure you, when they say 30%, we mean that 30% by end of next year. The measurement of 30%, that's why we're focusing on tertiary institutions first.
Now, the need to create a single sky for Africa takes center stage in Lomé, Togo, as political leaders, aviation regulators, and industry stakeholders gather for the inaugural Air Transport Convention. Among the dignitaries present were former Nigerian President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, Togolese President Faure Gnassingbé, Rwandan President Paul Kagame, and Secretary General of the African Civil Aviation Commission, Ms. Funke Adeyemi. Chief Obasanjo believes it's time to move away from more agreements to action.
Participants from across Africa as they settle into the venue of the inaugural Africa Air Transport Convention and Expo. At the heart of the discussions here is the implementation of the single African air transport market, starting a flagship African Union initiative.
As delegates settle into their seats, a distinguished lineup takes center stage, including former Nigerian President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, the President of Togo, Mr. Faure Gnassingbé, the Rwandan President, Mr. Paul Kagame, and the Secretary General of the African Civil Aviation Commission, Ms. Funke Adeyemi. Taking the floor, the President of AFCAC delivers a passionate address in French, calling for stronger air connectivity across Africa.
The theme, One African Sky Connectivity and Sustainable Air Development, captures both our ambition and responsibility. It speaks to the future we see, where African air transport is no longer a constraint on integration.
The single African air transport market, SATM, which has remained on the drawing board for 7 years following the Yamoussoukro decision of 1999, is once again at the heart of discussions.
Today, we understand that our vision of Agenda 2063 cannot be achieved if our skies remain fragmented. Therefore, through the single African air transport market, the SATM, we have a mechanism to put action to that declaration. That is why SATM has been elevated as a flagship project of the African Union.
Support for SATIM continues to gather momentum, with former Nigerian President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo asking African leaders to move beyond declaration to decisive action.
Africa does not need another beautiful declaration that gathers dust on a shelf. Africa needs decision and action that cut across, open routes, connect capital, move cargo, boost tourism, support airlines, protect consumers, and ensure our continent functions as one economic area. Let this convention be remembered not only as the first of its kind, but as the moment when Africa transitioned from ambition to action. Let us walk our talk.
For the organizers and delegates from 38 participating countries, the convention represents a major step towards building a seamless African air transport network. From the Togolese capital, Lomé, Bukola Ju Uketumbi, Channels Television News.
On business news, the Nigerian Insurers Association is set to make history by inaugurating Mrs. Ebele Chukwunwachukwu as its 27th chairman, making her the first female to hold the position in the association's 55-year existence. In a statement issued today, the NIA says that Mrs. Nwachukwu, who previously served as the deputy chairman of the NIA, is widely regarded as a triumph of competence, consistency, innovation, and transformational leadership. The Insurance Association body explains that her emergence as chairman is a landmark moment in the association's history and signals a new chapter for Nigeria's insurance subsector, which has been led almost exclusively by men, its highest decision-making level. Afrexim Bank has regained investment-grade status after S&P Global Ratings upgraded the lender to BBB+. With a stable outlook, S&P cited the bank's strong balance sheet and expanding role in African trade and development financing. The upgrade is expected to lower borrowing costs and strengthen its capacity to raise funds for lending across Africa. Despite concerns around exposure to sovereign debt risk in some restructuring economies, S&P said strong shareholder support helped reinforce the bank's credit profile. Meanwhile, the federal government has set up a technical working group to address the repeated rejection of Nigerian agricultural exports due to high pesticide residues and failure to meet international food safety standards. The Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security, Aliyu Abdullahi, says the move is part of the Renewed Hope agenda and a significant milestone in government's push for food safety and export competitiveness. He notes that Nigeria has lost millions of naira and market trust over the years because many farm products failed maximum residue limits tests and other sanitary requirements abroad.
The high rejection of our agricultural products is over 76% of Nigerian commodities have been rejected in some international markets for not meeting safety standards, with a notable ban on beans and restriction on sesame seeds. Key export hazards include contaminants from high residue of hazardous pesticide, e.g. diclovos, and aflatoxins in produce like hibiscus flowers, groundnuts, and melon seeds. In terms of economic impact, Nigeria loses roughly $362.5 million annually due to the ban on certain agricultural exports, in particular beans in this case. This definitely is a call for concern. And in terms of food safety risk, improper pesticide application, overuse or premature application before harvest leads to significant residue accumulation in food items, affecting both farmers and consumers. The health consequences are that chronic exposure is linked to cancer, organ damage, and birth defects. Acute direct exposure causes respiratory issues, dizziness, vomiting, and skin rashes among farmers. Issues demand a coordinated science-based and multi-sectoral response. This underscores the necessity for establishing the technical working group. And we are aware that there are agencies set up with complementary mandates. And so we should not have this notion of people wanting to protect their boundary. No, this is a Nigerian problem, and as a Nigerian problem, it requires the whole of government approach. And that is why the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security is providing leadership as far as this subject matter is concerned.
And that's it on the news at 5, reaching from Channels Television. For updates, kindly visit our website at www.channelstv.com. I'm Dominic Iwiwo. Up next is The World Today.